especially after our phone conversation.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm just hoping I don't trip over my own 2 feet.
Okay, so let's get right into it because
Okay.
I want to make sure we get to ask all the questions. Again, the phone lines are open if anyone has a question. So you've studied and taught music.
Yeah.
When did you know you were actually interested in music?
I didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't. Some things pick you. It picked me. Bottom line is this: my parents were going through a terrible divorce, and I was already introverted and a shy little kid, and I just went in. And my mother told me around the age of 9 or 10, when the divorce came final, she said, "You have to play music. I know you love music. I wasn't an athlete or anything like that." She was like, "Because if you don't play, I'm afraid I'll lose you." And so she just said, pick an instrument. And I can't afford it, and you can't afford to quit. That was it. You didn't tell your mother anything other than that. I'm like, okay.
And so your instrument of choice then was the sax?
It was the saxophone. It was the sax. I didn't want to do flute and clarinet. I'm not a tall person, but I didn't want to do what everybody thought was a girly instrument at that particular time. Things have changed. And I'm like, hey, I want to do the saxophone. I'd never seen an African-American female saxophonist in the mid to late 80s, early 90s. There was none of that. I mean, well, not in my small town.
Right.
It wasn't. But I had some teachers from North Carolina A&T. There were middle school and our junior high band directors that were music educators by day, and they were musicians by night. So they would come in and they would talk about how they played the Budweiser Superfest, or they played backup to Aretha Franklin and Stevie Wonder. And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. But the way wasn't easy, though.
Right.
The way wasn't easy. I mean, a female horn player, let alone a female horn player in church.
Right.
You didn't see that in the South at all.
You could barely get like the keys and a drum.
Oh my gosh.
So add a wind instrument.
Yes, there were times I was dubbed a saloon instrument, but my mother was like, I don't care what they say, you gonna play, and you what? Who you looking at? That's my child. You know how mothers are.
Right.
I'm the same way. But I wouldn't have traded for the world. I always tell my students, everybody that need to know your business, you can pour everything into your instrument. And it just goes out, and wonderful things come back from that, and you get great release. It was probably my psychotherapy, because Papa was a Rolling Stone. He wasn't no joke. He wasn't no joke. So it was just therapy. And my mother at the time was not well educated, and she did what she could to help, because he was an alcoholic. He was a heroin addict.
Oh, my.
Times was rough.
That's
it was
a
rough.
book.
Okay. I wouldn't change it though.
Right.
I wouldn't change it.
Right.
Why?
Right. Right. So do you encourage your son, your beautiful young man sitting here? Look, he's like, who? So have you encouraged him to play?
Well, yes. He took up the trumpet. I didn't want him to play trumpet. I wanted a saxophone player. And he decided that trumpet was my thing. He came home, Mom, I want to play trumpet. I'm like, really, dude? We got all these instruments in the house, and this is what you're going to pick? You can play for free. This is what I do. But moms are moms. They don't look at moms as being experts in other things.
Right.
So he played trumpet. He could play saxophone. He could play drums. He could play other things.
Right.
Now that we have a daughter, I'm hoping I get a saxophone player. Probably not. But that's okay. That's all right.
So tell us, what is Southern Soul?
Southern Soul is a mixture. I coined that phrase. I'm gonna say it like that.
Okay.
It's a mixture of a couple of different things. Not only do I like jazz and R&B and all that other kind of stuff, but you've got, as a saxophone player, the big sound, Texas sound of King Curtis. You've got a mixture of people like Stanley Turrentine and Cannonball Adderley and Charlie Parker. And then as I got older, Pamela Williams and Candy Dulfer and all that kind of stuff mixed in with the church hymnal sound, mixed in with the blues. In fact, I didn't even know what the blues was until I went to college.
Okay.
That's what we heard in church. In fact, they say sometimes what you did on Saturday night would sort of flow into what you do on Sunday morning.
That's right.
Depends on what beat people moving on. But anyway, you can't. I would love to say I'm a singer on the saxophone. I would love to say that, because that's where it comes. It just comes out that way. I wish, I was a singer. I try to.
Well, you're singing on your CD.
You know what? Let me tell you about that song.
By the way, we're playing the CD in the background for you
yes,
to enjoy.
That one song, My husband had to date me in the marching band at the time, and I never forget hearing this sound in the middle of the night, and I'm like, "What in the world is this?" It woke me up, and it kept going over and over and again, and I looked at him, you know, months down the road, and I'm like, "I've got a song, and you inspired it," and he was like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm gonna sing. He was like, "You wait a minute, you gonna sing?" Because you know, hey, you stay in your lane.
Right,
I'm a firm
right.
believer that, you know, and but anyway, it came out like that.
Nice. Okay.
I'm not to your level, but you know.
Oh, please.
I try.
Shoot.
Especially
you
with it
did
being Valentine's Day, I gotta do what I gotta do.
So will you be singing? We'll talk more about the upcoming event, but are you going to sing that night too?
Oh no. Oh no, they hired me to be a saxophone player. That's what I am going to be. But I try to take notes and do a lot of singing at home.
Okay. Shout out to Brian Smith, who is the promoter for the event that's coming up Saturday. Again, we'll talk about that.
Yes.
And he's also the reason that you're here. He introduced us, connected us, and I appreciate that. So shout out to Brian. Hey, Brian. So let's go back to your studies.
Yes.
So what was studying music at the graduate level like?
It was different. I had gone to a historically black college and university. I went to Virginia Union University, where I love HBCUs. They are wonderful. They nurture your children. They nurture your mind. They look out for you. Don't show up to class. See what happens. They'll call your mama if you don't watch it, just to ensure that you get through. And I love that nurturing, and I needed that nurturing coming out of Southwestern Virginia, where I was the only female saxophone player and the only one of color. And so when I went to graduate school, I was doing my graduate thesis on Undine Smith Moore. Shout out to Virginia State. Virginia State alumni as well as professor. Just wonderful choral professor. And so when I went, it was good to go to Shenandoah because it had so many different professors and things to study. However, there was some lacking at the time for African American studies, so I had to bring my research with me, especially on an African American professor, singer, arranger, composer at that. So I was the first to do a lot of the studies that my thesis was on. In fact, it helped when a book came out about her and solidifying my studies with her. It was a little different, but people were nurturing there. Just it wasn't like the HBCU, which is like, you know, Big Mama down the road and, you know, and Uncle such and such, you know, she won't enter the house at 2:00 in the morning. I saw her outside, you know, type thing. But, you know, it did what it needed to do too. And I'm grateful for that. It allowed me to go to school and teach marching band camp in the summer. And I come from a family where, you know, look, when you graduate, at the time when I graduated, I had more education than my mother. So you didn't call home and say, "Mama, I need $5,000," because there's more behind you.
Right.
You know, so if you got education, you need to eat some oodles and noodles until, you know, you can get that money right and pay that student loan.
Right.
And pay for that class. So, you know, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Shenandoah Conservatory, and I'm grateful for Virginia Union University. You know, I understand what it's like to study in the, you know, academics in both venues, and I'm glad because, you know, I fell in love with the Library of Congress because of both of them. That's a wonderful place. You looking for anything, you find it there.
Right. Did that kind of lead you into teaching, or how did you end up moving into teaching as a career?
I was charged with, through those two band directors I was telling you about, saying, you know, they were like, "Hey, you know, if this is what you're gonna do, number one, don't embarrass us. Number two, you best to play." They didn't play. But number three, if this is what you're gonna do, what we need you to do is to make sure you train those that are coming behind you. Always make sure you're training your replacements. Always make sure that the product, which is our students and our customers that we serve, is served well. Period. You know, because you're gonna have to answer for that.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm grateful for that. I'm at the age now where I can say there are music educators that came from me. You know, and I'm glad I can say, you know, if I go tomorrow, I look at, okay, Mr. Butler, Mr. Hairston from North Carolina A&T, I did what I was supposed to do. Can y'all let me go now?
You made your contribution.
You have to give back. I'm very grateful for that. But as far as teaching, there was some roads that I wouldn't wish anybody would have to go through. It's not easy. I mean, I sit and I smile.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, those are part of the growing pains that you have. People aren't always nice.
Right.
People assume that my husband is a wonderful gentleman. He carries my horns. Sometimes my son does. They assume that they're the horn players. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it is what it is. But that's okay. That's okay.
So when we spoke, you had mentioned that we talked about the journey from teaching, from learning to teaching, and then to doing your own CD project. And you had mentioned that you felt that it wasn't moving into music and putting a CD was more of your calling.
Yes.
More of what God wants you to
Yes.
do. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what was that transition like for you?
Oh, I'm hard-headed, stiff-necked, and stubborn. I'm gonna say it like that. And I had gotten very comfortable in teaching my students and playing for them and making sure that they know that I'm a musician who's a teacher, because I think that's very important. I was raised, Mr. Butler and Mr. Harris, they were musicians who taught, and you have to know your craft in order to teach. And so I was angry with God because I was being moved from one school to the next. And I was like, wait a minute, now I finally got this thing where it's good. You know, I can produce a level of musician of this caliber. And they were like, you need to go to some other schools. I'm like, excuse me? You know, and the look on my face was like, who are you talking to? You know, because I'm very passionate about what I do. And I had a conversation with God. I'm like, you see me down here doing the best that I can do. Why aren't you?
Hold on, excuse me, 1 second. Looks like we might have a call. Excuse me.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I think we got somebody coming in. Excuse me. Hello, caller?
Yes,
Hi, you're on Listen Vision Live. Who are we speaking to?
this is Carmen Craven.
This is who?
Carmen Craven.
Carmen Craven. Hi, Carmen.
Hi.
Oh, wonderful singer.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
She is.
Oh my gosh.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm listening to the show, and I'm so proud of Melinda and what she's accomplishing.
She's so sweet.
Oh, yes, she is. Well, thank you so much. We both appreciate you calling.
Yes.
Yeah, Carmen, we need you to turn down is it your radio that's on? Or your computer? Turn down the computer.
My radio. Is that better?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a little better. Now, is Carmen performing?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you know what? I've
Oh,
seen
yes.
videos of Carmen. We got to get Carmen on the show. I've seen videos, but I have not been able to catch her live on the live yet. So I look forward to seeing her on Saturday.
Treat. Powerhouse.
Oh, my.
She's a powerhouse.
Well, thank you so much for calling, Carmen.
Yes, I just wanted to say hi to Wendy and hi to Melinda and let you know, Melinda, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, you're so
Melinda
sweet.
and I have worked together before, but I'm looking so forward to Saturday's event.
Same.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll see you on Saturday. Bye. Okay, sorry about that. I tell you, the calls just come through when they want to come through. You know, we got to talk about that. Maybe have some type of put people on hold. I tell you, we're just growing, so
That's great.
we're improvising as we go. Okay, so where were we in our interview? You remember, like, we was on a roll too.
We were.
Okay, well,
We're on a roll.
huh?
Oh.
Being hard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was being hard-headed, and I remember asking. I was trying to call my husband at work or my mother. You know, one of the two. Hey, can somebody talk to me? Because I'm really angry right now. They're moving me, and I'm doing my job. And I said out loud, you know, Lord, you see me down here. Why are you gonna do me like this? Is this what you meant? Really? Really? I mean, I had attitude too. And I heard a voice and I'm like, okay, I'm losing my mind. And there's nobody else in the car. And he said, this is what you decided to do. You decided to give back. I didn't ask you that. I built you to play. I built you to play. So I gave you music. What are you going to do with it? And I was like, oh my. And when you hear that, you've got to do something with it. Now, what I was not equipped with was, even though I'm fortunate to be well educated, the music side of music business had no idea. I mean, I did study composing and arranging and stuff like that, But when you talk about copyright and paying people if you're going to use somebody else's song, because you need to do things decent and in order.
Right.
You know, you just don't steal somebody else's music and put it on your CD and think it's going to flourish when you basically stealing.
Right.
You know, making sure that things are in order, the musicians are paid, that contracts are signed, and oh, by the way, your bills have to be paid at home.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you got parent-teacher conferences to attend to. You know, you need to make sure your family's in good health. That was different. It was different, and it was very much a faith walk. In fact, we recorded it in my sister's basement. It just so happens my sister has a music studio in her basement.
Oh, nice. So is she a musician?
No.
Oh.
Oh no, only one of those in the family.
Okay.
No, she's actually a talk show host. AprilJonesTV.com is her thing.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I am not the talker in the family. My mother's a pastor, but you know, I'm actually the shy, introverted one of the three.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an interesting group.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, started the journey and you know, talked to people. Mike Harrison, which I mentioned, was a professor of mine, a teacher of mine, but is also a heavyweight in the jazz scene here in Washington D.C. And I called him and I'm like, hey, would you come, you know, play on the CD? I heard the song that I you know, I'm starting to pen, and in fact, the song I Hear You is him and I having a conversation on our saxophones.
Nice.
And, you know, you call Marcus Mitchell, you know, who had projects out, the local artist in the local scene. How do you do this? You know, and there were a lot of people who were very forthcoming. There are some people who were not.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, wish them well, pray for them, keep it moving. You know, you have to grow a thick skin. And I'm grateful for that too. You know, okay, you know, you won't let me through the door, but I can go through a window.
So when you say when you have to grow a thick skin, especially with independent artists, what do you mean specifically?
Everybody doesn't like your sound. When you don't have a major label, you know, backing you, maybe the venues are smaller, but that's okay.
Right.
You know, maybe you have to sweat a little bit, and maybe they're, you know, the green room, maybe the bathroom, but that's okay. You know, I mean, and that's okay. I wouldn't change it for the world, because it's one thing to be in a classroom. You know, I love to say I'm a lifelong learner. So, you know, right now, everything I go through is part of my classroom. And I take it back to my students and I say, you know, I had a gig this weekend, Miss Ford, I don't feel like playing, or I don't want to play. And I'm like, get over it. You know, what do you mean you can't practice? I had to practice too, you know, after I put my kids to bed.
Right.
So, you know, you have all of that. They hear me practice. You know, sometimes you can't get all the practicing in at home. Laundry has to be folded.
Right.
You got other things to do, or you got taxes to make sure you're straight.
Right.
You know, so we decided my husband and I, to have a business because Uncle Sam is going to make sure that they get their taxes, and so they should.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna make sure I want my interest-free loan back, and I need receipts and all that other kind of stuff. So, you know, so you bring it up on the table and you make sure everything is good.
Okay.
You know.
So one more quick question before we go to break. So what are some of the things that you would suggest that? What are some of the things that you learned in terms of if you had it to do over again, you would do, and things that you wouldn't do in terms of your project?
I would have tried to be myself sooner than later. You know, when people call you to play, I can't speak for anything else other than playing saxophone. They want you to sound like Gerald Albright. They want you to sound like Candy Dolfer. They want you to sound like Kurt Whalum. They whatever song they want, that's what they want. I'm not. And by the time we got to the finished project, we had recorded it 3 times.
Right.
You know, you go in picking those people that are nice and friendly you like to play with, but you find that their timing isn't always impeccable. Or you find that maybe they say yes and other things come up, or there's bigger money somewhere else. You know, so, you know, just making sure I'm very big when it comes to your word is your bond kind of thing.
Yes.
Honor among musicians.
Woo,
everybody doesn't have that.
No, they don't.
And, you know, and that's okay. It's okay. But, you know, I ain't no pushover either. If I told you need to be here and this is how much I'm paying you, you roll out, we can deduct it, and it's okay.
Right. Yeah, that is frustrating. Do what you say you're going to do. Oh, that's it. Okay, so we've got to go to a quick break. We're going to take a break and show you a quick clip for the Band of Roses, which is a group of women musicians that will be performing on Saturday.
Phenomenal group.
For the Valentine's Day show. And we'll, again, talk about that in a minute. But just take a quick look at this video and then come back and we will have you perform live.
Yay!
Yay! We'll be right back.
I've been praying to find a love that's truly divine. I have learned down through the years a man can cause me tears, and I want to release all of my fears. What could have caused God to show me a love, a smile, a laugh like yours? I really don't know. I'll tell you this: I will love and cherish you, for I know that this one thing is true. Brian, I love you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
Oh my goodness.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
I know your husband's like, boo.
Did I get brownie points, Brian?
Yes. I was like, I'd love to be the inspiration behind a song like that.
It was something to feel.
That
and
was
hear,
beautiful.
You
Yeah.
know, when I got that, but he's such an angel. God really likes me. My husband is wonderful.
See, you do right, live right, it comes back. It really does.
I hope so.
It does. Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. So tell us about your upcoming performance
Yes.
on Saturday.
Yes.
And where, what is the event? Where is it?
Well, it's for lovers, and it's at the Dulles Hyatt Regency in Northern Virginia. And I did the event 3 years ago. Brian Smith, Smitty is what we call him. Wonderful man of his word.
Yes.
So if Brian tells you you need to go somewhere and do this, that's what you're going to do. And so he said, hey, Melinda, I don't really know you. He didn't know me at the time. You were recommended, as a horn player. Can you come play? And I'm like, yeah, I like the spirit.
Yeah.
I like the spirit. And look, I was a fan. I walked into the rehearsal, all these women, which, we're taught subconsciously that we don't get along. That's a lie.
Absolutely.
We had the best time. I walked in and I saw these musicians, and they were serious about what they did, and they were beautiful. And I turned around because I kept looking at the piano player behind me. I'm like, I know you. Why do I know you? And it hit me, and I was a groupie. I was like, oh my gosh, my husband's got to fill your CDs with Kim Jordan. And she was like, okay, calm down. And I started to say, look, can I get your autograph so I can get some brownie points? Because my husband just adored her playing. And you ride down the road and, you're listening to things. And I'm like, wow, who's this wonderful pianist? And so, and then, you have Kendra, awesome bass player. I mean, just awesome musicians with wonderful, giving, loving spirits. And fun to play with and be around. And the singers are just powerful.
Yes.
And I'm on board for the experience. Brian, hey, you need a saxophone player for the next couple of years.
You're
I'm
in.
here. Because it's wonderful to see. We don't get an opportunity to see one another very often.
Right.
Kayla Waters is new to the group, but one monster musician. Just wonderful.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely be there. I'm going to do some live interviews, and I'll share with the audience next Monday when we come back. So we're going to have to end the interview. We only have a few more minutes. Tell the audience briefly how they can stay connected to you, how they can follow you. See your future performances.
I have to work on my technology, but my son is young enough to keep me straight here. So I'm on Facebook, and people can get in contact with me there. I do gigs in and around DC, metropolitan Virginia, area. But really, if you want to see me play, come to Peace Baptist Church every Sunday morning. I'm there.
And where's Peace Baptist Church?
712 18th Street, Benning Road.
Okay.
Yes, come to Peace Baptist Church, and I'm no different there than I am in the Hyatt Regency or at Blues Alley.
Right.
I'm fortunate God has blessed me with the gift that I do have, and hopefully I can bless other people, and either give them ease or give them inspiration, and keep moving that way.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure meeting you. And I again thank you to Brian for introducing us. We must do love, give love, show love.
Yes.
Thank you
sister.
so much.
Thank you.
And I hope that, and I'm not going to say I hope, I'm pretty sure that someone was blessed with some information that would be useful to them. And again, I'm sure like if someone reached out on Facebook to have questions or whatever, you'd be happy to answer and share some knowledge. So we're going to end the show with our Set Your Mind, Set Your Week segment. So this quote, I got to put the glasses on. Okay, so it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are, and that's by E.E. Cummings. And so the lesson for that is this week's inspirational message focuses on becoming who you are meant to be. We can learn from the greats and those we admire, but the true test of maturity is realizing who we really are and who we're meant to be, giving us the freedom to fulfill our destiny. It's always better to be an original versus a great copy of a great original. So let's see, do we have time to show like 1 minute of my favorite video by Uncle Charlie? We'll play one quick minute because we've got the Earth Show coming up next. And